What is up, everybody? Chris here from Big Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys a super quick preview of what to expect going into today's matches, that of course being Friday's matches, as well as what you guys can expect throughout the rest of the weekend, that of course being Saturday and Sunday's matches, as you can already see on the screen. So looking right at it, we're going to kick things off with the Ultra taking on the Paris Legion, and I think the Ultra walk away with this one, but I think it'll be pretty close. The series between New York and Paris was not as close as I thought. And in week one, I expected Paris to go 2-0, but yeah, that went well. But here, I think the Legion probably have a good chance to probably take a map somewhere, maybe opening hardpoint. We'll see how that goes for Ultra, but as it stands, their hardpoint's been getting a lot better. Yeah, ever since the Pro-Am, they've been really good in the mode. They kind of got it together, and I think that'll continue against the Legion side. But the Legion, they seem to only be getting better ever so slightly. So at some point, I think they're going to break on through and upset somebody. I don't think it'll be Toronto, but I think it'll happen soon enough. They're on the verge of a breakout. So with that in mind, I'm going to say 3-1 for the Ultra. Realistically, I like some of the looks that I've seen from the Legion in Control, as well as their play in opening hardpoints. If they get a Bocage hardpoint, I feel like that's a map that they could definitely win. Ultra have not been the best on Bocage, so if we see a Bocage map 1, I feel like that would be a very good look for the Paris Legion, and that's one they can definitely take. Now, looking at our next matchup, we have the Mutineers taking on the Surge. I know some of the Mutineers have COVID, so with that in mind, I'll say 3-1 Surge. I mean, they looked a lot better. Their consistency seemed to really improve considerably. And I think the Surge will probably make winners bracket this weekend. So yeah, we'll say 3-1 Surge. I feel pretty comfortable with that. Now in our last matchup on Friday, we of course, what time it is. Yeah, it's gonna be Faze versus Rokkr. So I think that'll be a close game. But I think Faze take it 3-1. I think that Rokkr is definitely, like, in most people's power rankings, the top, I guess, 4 right now, occupying the 3rd slot in most people's minds, right? But it's pretty interchangeable between them and NYSL. It's just dependent on who shows up that day and the map sets as well. So with that in mind, I think Faze is just in a league of their own. It's just Optic and Faze in the S tier, and then Minnesota and New York in the A tier with a few other teams that are contenders. So I would say 3-1 Faze is my decisive call. Now, in our next matchup on Saturday, we of course kick things off with our reigning defending stage 2 champs, LA Guerillas, who are currently 1-3, I think, taking on Faze in their last matchup of stage 3. So I don't know if they even have a chance at winners bracket. I know they've lost most of their matches. They won last week, right? Let me check the results. Did they win last week? Yeah, they beat Paris last week. Okay. So, yeah. So they lost most of their matches this stage, and week 1, they lost every match, right? Yeah, they got 3-0'd, and they lost 3-0 again. Yeah. So they're chalked. Let's just call it as they're chalked. So, yeah. 1 win, 3 losses. Yeah. So that's going to be 1-4. I think it's Faze 3-0. Even with gunless, I think it's a 3-0 for Faze. They're going to be looking to get back after Optic, bodied them. I didn't even get to watch the series because my power actually went out that day. So I missed the New York series and I missed the Faze series because the power was out, in my entire area. There was no cell service either. So I didn't even get to see that match. I watched the New York-Toronto series, that night. And that was really entertaining, but I couldn't even bring myself to watch the Faze series after I heard how bad map 3 and 4 were. So yeah, I think they'll be looking to bounce back, and I think they will in their series against Rokkr and then against Guerillas. Now, in our next matchup of Saturday, we will of course have Ultra taking on the Ravens. And as it stands, I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup. We of course have 2 full EU rosters going head to head. Woo! So that'll be interesting. There's a battle for Europe, really. And I think that the Ravens likely walk away with it, but their form's been all over the place. I kind of like Harry in this roster, but I do think that Gizmo going back to Europe really kind of chalked this team to a large degree. Obviously, it was out of his hands, but the team chemistry has definitely suffered without him because he was such an integral part of that team's success. So, with that in mind, I think it'll be a valiant effort from the Ravens, but I see it realistically being a 3-2 for the Ultra. Now, in our next matchup at 6 p.m., we have the Breach taking on the Thieves, and the Thieves have been atrocious online, while the Breach and especially TJ's like gotten a second win. This is like World War II TJ all over again. It's crazy. So we'll call it a 3-1. I think the Thieves will be trying to really get some better looks going into the major because they will likely be thinking, hey, we're definitely going to have to make a loser's run after going 0-3. And then having to face off against Breach and Optic, literally number 1 and number 4 to close things out. So, yeah, not looking too great for them. And with that in mind, I think Breach might have overtaken London as number 3. I'll fact check in post. But yeah, Breach are looking really good. They've had a great stage 3 so far, and I think they'll continue in their series against the Thieves, and I think it'll be a pretty dominant win for them. The Thieves have not looked very good online, but of course it's COD, anything can happen, and maybe Envoy and the boys turn up and they get the win. But as it stands, I think it's a 3-1 for the Breach. And then in our marquee matchup of Saturday, this is going to be a really good one. We have number 1 in everybody's power rankings taking on what most of us consider to be a pretty consistent top 4 team in everybody's power rankings, New York Subliners. So I think, honestly, I see it being a 3-2 for Optic. I think this is going to be their most difficult series of the stage. Even though they don't match up well with Faze, they are too good in that matchup. And it really pains me to say it, but it's true. I have to be objective. They don't necessarily match up well with teams like the Subliners, who are a little bit more methodical and have like different pacing, right? Like their pacing is a little bit odd. I mean, you have Hydra and of course Kismet, who are super fast, and then you have Krim and Paulex, who are like Paul's pretty like snail-esque, right? Like he's snail-esque as a flex. Like I like his pacing a lot because he's like a hardcore like old school flex. It feels so weird to say with such a young esport, but he's like one of the OGs. So I like his play style, but they definitely play like a very odd game. And I feel like their game is a very good counter to the Optic game because, of course, Optic has Shotzi, who's like a speed demon, and they're all about speed more so. Prelude's a very fast like flex player, but he's also very like methodical too. And Dashy's very fast for an AR. So then you have Scump, who's like kind of methodical like Prelude. So the pacing's weird. But I do favor New York to take a couple maps here and Optic to take the series overall. Their S&Ds looked really good. Optic and New York's has looked really bad. So that's where I expect the difference to be made in the series. Now looking at the London Royal Ravens versus Seattle Surge. This is feeling like the trap of the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta be careful in what I say here. I think that depends on how Surge play on Friday. And if Surge doesn't look good on Friday, I will definitely take London to beat them, especially if London beat Ultra. It was a hard one. But based on the personnel that is on Seattle and how streaky they can be at times, I'm just going to say London 3-2. It's really dependent on Mac and accuracy to play well. If they play well, it's a 3-0 for Seattle. But given the fact that they're like really mid, we'll say this year after the, of course, kickoff classic, I can't in good faith say that they'll win this series, especially since Zero, Afro, and of course Nasty, that core 3 has been winning all year long, and they're still like in 3rd or 4th place. I can't remember how the standings sit now, but I'm pretty sure they're in 3rd place. So with that in mind, I think Ravens squeak this one out 3-2. I think it'll be a really exciting series, probably series of the weekend if we're being honest, along with Subliners Optic. Of course, in our next matchup, we have the Boston Breach taking on the Mutineers. And I will give Mutineers a map out of respect. But honestly, it depends on whether or not the players have recovered from Rona. If they haven't recovered from the Roro, then I think it's a 3-0. That rhymed. But if they haven't recovered from the Roro, I think it might be a if they have recovered from the Rokkr, I think it might be a 3-1. I think Boston is just the better team in that matchup, and I think it'll definitely show here online. But online, I think it would be a different story. So that leaves us to our marquee matchup, which is kind of not a marquee matchup. I think when they made the schedule, they were basing it off of the pro-am performances. So they're like, oh, Texas versus LA Thieves, the rematch is going to be so spicy, but it's really not going to be that spicy, most likely. Thieves are just not a great online team. They're really good on LAN. I don't know. Maybe it's a connection thing since they're playing from LA. They're just not that good online. So with that in mind, I'm going to say 3-1 for Optic, just out of respect to Thieves. I think they likely take a map somewhere. I think it'll be a pretty interesting series, but I don't think that Thieves will necessarily punch Optic in the mouth, right? So yeah, guys, that'll just about wrap it up for me. Of course, a quick recap. We have Ultra 3-1 over Paris. Mutineers 3-1 loss to Surge. Surge taking a 3-1 here. Faze taking a 3-1 victory over Rokkr, and that's our Friday matches. And then on Saturday, we have Faze taking a 3-0 over Guerillas. Ultra taking a 3-2 win over the London Royal Ravens. The Boston Breach taking a 3-1 victory over the LA Thieves. Optic Texas taking a 3-2 victory over the Subliners in what I think will be a nail-biter and probably match of the weekend, along with our next matchup on Sunday to kick things off. The London Royal Ravens, taking on the Seattle Surge, where I expect London to walk away with a comfortable 3-2. And then in our 4:30 matchup on Sunday, we have the Breach taking on the Mutineers, and I expect that to be a 3-1. It's pretty comfortable for the Breach. In our last match of Sunday, of course, our last match of Stage 3 regular play before we have the major next weekend, I expect Optic Texas to walk away with a very comfortable 3-1, probably a 3-0, but I don't think they'll break a sweat. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoy all the matches this weekend. Hope you have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. And don't forget to, of course, like, comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I always reply to comments, so be sure to talk to me. And yeah, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, link will be down below. And we got some exciting things on the horizon, so be sure to stay tuned and enjoy all the COD. Once again, this is Chris with Big Sports News, and I'm signing off. Peace.